Arcade Heroes.
Get ready!
Greetings, it's Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com, and having to do this a little bit different than the norm just because I'm having some weird computer issues. But this video is talking about some games on location tests. Now, a disclaimer before we really get into the meat of it is that location tests are the Arcade World's beta test, and that means that what we talk about here, what you see on the blog, what I'm showing, could end up changing completely from what we see. There also has to be some speculation because it's very rare that a manufacturer will provide a lot of details on something, and so best I can do is speculate in those instances or just judge based off of what I see. But also sometimes the game doesn't do well on test and it gets quietly canceled. And so when that happens, it just, disappears and people forget that they saw it in the first place. But it also can be an indicator of something that's going to be coming to arcades at some point in the future. So we've got 3 games to discuss today. I'm going to start off with the one that, this one I don't know if it will get anywhere. There's the least amount of interest in this one, and I'll basically go backwards from the blog post of where we go there. So I'll start with Forklift Frenzy by Baytech, and then Popn Music by Konami, and then Resident Evil 2 Dead Shot. But really quick, Forklift Frenzy, this was sent in by Jay Devi. He's always sending us great stuff. And he saw this on location in Wisconsin, which is where the manufacturer Baytech Entertainment tends to test out their games. Now, we can't see much because just so happened whoever took this photo was when a dad and his daughter was walking in front of the machine, and so it's covering up most of it. I guess it just involves if you're put you in the role of being a forklift operator and probably loading stuff to get tickets. That's all we know. But Baytech has tested a lot of stuff before that they end up not releasing, so I'm not really expecting much out of this unless it shows up at IAPA. And Baytech says, yeah, we're going ahead with it. But that's our first one, and it'll definitely be a redemption game. Also of interest on the internet, particularly, has been new Pop'n Music. That's new with 2 exclamation points. That's been on test over in Tokyo, and the game uses a 43-inch 120 hertz screen, and there's also a small touch screen in the center, but again, lots of stuff on that can change. What's interesting about it is that it has English all over the machine. Now, I've also heard from some very, very reliable sources that Konami is very serious about making moves into the United States or North America again and selling their machines here. Whether or not that would include this new Pop'n Music, I'm not sure because it's still on test. But let's say it passes test, then there's a very good chance. From what I saw of what Konami is planning on bringing over to the States, then they certainly would bring this just as well, because Konami is looking at bringing more than just DDR over here. They are looking at several other of their B-Money titles, and so this would fit in pretty well, but it has to do well on test. But there are videos on X as well as YouTube showing the location test. There's been quite a lot of interest in this just because anything Konami puts out as far as arcade machines goes, there's always a lot of interest on that stuff. But then the big one that a lot of people have been talking about is Resident Evil 2 Dead Shot, which has the Bandai Namco logo on it. And of course, this is a Capcom game. So once again, this would indicate that those 2 companies are getting together and producing something arcade related. Now, from Capcom's side, they've been weird ever since they closed down their US arcade division back in, I think it was 2001. Mars Matrix was like one of the last games that they produced. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was around that time as well. But they've still done some things here and there on the Japanese arcade scene, but it's been very random, very inconsistent. They did do Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, which I've ranted about plenty of times, but they've also done Super Street Fighter, or sorry, Street Fighter 5 type arcade, as well as Street Fighter 6 type arcade that have been released over in Japan, but those were also made available in very limited quantities for operators in the States. It's just the cost of the kits were so outrageous that not many people were interested in it. And on top of that, I've heard through the grapevine that those games haven't performed very well over in Japan either. And so even in Japan, the whole thing of running a console game where there's more focus from the manufacturer on the console game, and they're basically just using the arcade version as a prop to get more console sales, it doesn't really work in Japan either. It still screws operators over, but out of everybody in the mix, it's the operators who are having to pay out the nose to get these games, and try charging 100 yen or $1 for them. And a lot of players don't want to do that because they're just like, I'll just play it on my console where I've bought it for 40 bucks or whatever, and then I can just play online and whatever about lag. I don't care. And anyways, that's getting off the beaten path. And Resident Evil 2 Deadshot, and I mean, there's not a whole lot I can say about this because, again, Namco is not saying much about it. It is on test in the UK, and from what I could confirm is that this is the only one that's out there right now. But Namco asked that we remove the name of the location because what it was is the this photo that you're seeing here. It was actually created by a social media account for the location where it was at, but I don't think they were supposed to do that because this is a very, very early test. And because of that, it's very possible that this thing is going to change a lot between right now, what we're seeing here, and the final product. Now, somebody did send me an email claiming that they hadn't played it, and I haven't been able to vet that out yet to see if it's accurate or not. And so, because of that, I'm not going to share much about that, just because who knows, they might be pulling my chain. I don't know. They are claiming it uses a pistol in there, which would make sense as far as on the cabinet itself, where you see Leon Kennedy and I can't read the name on there, and it's been such a long time since I played Resident Evil 2. I can't remember all the names of the characters, but they're both holding pistols there. I mean, I like this look, and I also assume that there's other LED lights on it that maybe change. Looking through the glass there where it's really frosty and blurry, it's looks like there's something about headshot there, but and I also misread this when I initially did the post on this. I thought it was Resident Evil 2 Headshot, but it's actually Deadshot. But what's interesting is this is not the first time that Capcom and Namco have worked together before, and even on this franchise, back in I think it was 2001 or 2002, they worked on the Gun Survivor Biohazard 2 game, which was widely panned, not liked very much, and I've never seen one over here in the States. I think it was mainly just sold in Europe, but even then, I don't think it was a super strong seller. Obviously, they'd also exist in Japan. But yeah, what would I expect out of this one? Something that's probably a little closer to, say, House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn, maybe the Walking Dead arcade, and seeing what or, following those patterns of maybe somewhere between 5 to 10 stages, and shooting zombies. Now, of course, Resident Evil's not really known for throwing lots of zombies at you, and like, say, House of the Dead or The Walking Dead are. But when you're doing an arcade style thing, then you got to change it up. And that's where, while I complained about the console ports to arcade sort of thing, like if you drastically change the game to basically be a different game, then it's okay, because it's just not a one-to-one sort of ratio going on there. And I would not expect this to just be the console version thrown into an arcade cabinet, because that just would not make any money. It wouldn't work. And so I'm expecting this to be drastically changed from the Resident Evil 2 remake that came out about 6 years ago. and uh, designed into an action-packed on-rails shooter. And so, yeah, whether or not it has any sort of special gimmicks to it or features that we haven't seen before, I don't know. But at the very least, again, I would expect this to be an exclusive to arcades. And when it will come out, it's anybody's guess because this hasn't officially been announced by Namco. It could be showing up at IAPA 2025, which is a giant trade show in November, or might not be there at all, and we might not see it until IAPA 2026, or we might not even see a release until 2027. It just depends, because like we saw, there are Goldstorm Pirates, which came out very recently, and when we first saw that, I think it was the beginning of 2023 or the end of 2022 when that was first being tested, and it's taken a while to hit a release. But of course, obviously, they've made it somewhere a little far along. It's not like it's an alpha build necessarily, but it just depends on various factors. And if it doesn't test well, then they're probably going to have to spend a lot of time going back and changing things so that they can figure out what's needed. But either way, could this do well if it comes on the market? As long as everything's there, that makes it an interesting and unique game. I mean, it's got the name at the very least, and with it being based on the remake, I would also assume it's going to look great. I mean, hopefully they've enhanced a few things because that remake is a few years old at this point. But and then of course where you've got it on rails, you'll be able to uh, do some other things there. But yeah, let me know what you think about this, or if you're interested in the other two games that we mentioned there. There's probably other games that are out on test there as well. One thing that I should also throw out really quick is that Missile Command Recharged Arcade Edition from Allen One and Atari is now available to purchase, and so if you're interested in that one, it's available to grab. I've been trying to get my hands on that for a test, but things haven't worked out in that regard yet. But also, Alan Wen has been working on that Soda Slam game where they have secured a major license on that. But I haven't seen anything as far as a render of what that cabinet's going to look like or an in-person thing. But Alan One is at California Extreme, also known as CAX, this weekend. They're setting up as I'm recording this. I'm not there though myself to check it out, but if you are attending CAX, then you can play in the Allen One MLES tournament, which you need a phone to do that, a mobile device, and log into their MLES tournament. And everybody who plays, so whoever gets the highest score out of all those players, will actually win a Missile Command Recharge cabinet. And so I have been able to see that cabinet in person. The one with the LEDs looks really sharp, very, very nice design to it. And I think the gameplay is going to be easier for most people out there to enjoy versus, say, Asteroids, because it's not quite as chaotic as, say, Asteroids is. But either way, that's a new game that's out. But yeah, that gets us caught up on the news. I should be doing this more often. But yeah, when you have certain uh, problems with your computer hardware, it makes it a little tough. But thanks for watching. Let me know which one of these interests you the most below, and we'll see you next time.